Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark DJ Solitaire here with episode 157 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I share in each episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. The last couple of episodes, we had some tracks that featured some breakbeats, uh, mildly in one case, I think mildly anyway, in a track by Nucleus, where for me the four on the floor, and the overall, movement and flavor of the track really felt more like a traditional dance track. And then the last episode before this one was by Jojoka, where it was a lot more overt and where the percussive elements were a bit more crisply defined and I think a little bit more, pronounced. Now, generally, I've stated, I'm not as much a percussion kind of person, simply because I think when you're dancing, the beat, your body does what the beat is doing. And then so you embody that, and then you start hearing more of what's happening on other levels. The kick is not for me generally the thing. Of course, the flavor of the kick is going to impact, things in terms of resonance and the overall vibe for sure. Now, the project we're going to listen to today is one I featured before, and with one of the musicians I'd featured even before that. And this is like the first time I ever heard what would be called breakbeats that I liked. And for me, these guys still stand in a league of their own, simply because it doesn't sound like, one of my challenges with when things get too beat focused and percussion focused, or that it just becomes too clubby and then it becomes too terrestrial. When I think, the whole concept for me of this music and my whole concept is going beyond what is familiar on this particular plane. We're going to have a couple of elements that hold us, that are familiar here. And one of the things about a kick is that it's grounding. But I don't really want associations to ordinary life. So I want associations to, a nightclub scene. And one of my issues, in a sense, with some of what our scene has turned into, and in some locations it's a little bit more pronounced, is that this is another club scene. This was never the case for me. It was never a club scene, and it was never even a scene. I think as soon as it becomes a scene and you need to be seen, it's a little bit different. Uh, I actually used the term, perhaps unconsciously, but at the beginning of each episode, talking about this movement. And for me, it always was a movement. And the movement, not just the dance itself being a movement, but it was a social, cultural, and consciousness movement. And for me, from based on my first experience, and I know that others have had the same or similar experiences. Of course, nobody has exactly the same experience. Uh, was that this is about the beyond. This is about what connects us beyond this planet and what is familiar. And so, I started hearing a lot of breakbeats, and especially when I went back to Vancouver in 96 for a break between Tokyo before moving to London. North America was in a very clubby kind of vibe. And again in 98. And it was very club persona, and you go to be seen, and you have your certain dance moves, and it wasn't about self-expression. It's about you express in a way in order to be seen. And for me, this whole movement was you don't care how you look. I mean, you're going to pay attention to, I mean, for me, the clothes was about a manner of natural expression, like especially Space Tribe stuff was like, what is this kind of signature element, what color and what pattern, and, how is there this kind of energetic signature? So when I first heard Lorenzo Zutter in his two incredible tracks that I first heard in January 97 on a mixtape that a French DJ had given me to give to Tsuyoshi, I was just like, what the heck is this? And then I got those tracks on a fantastic compilation, The Fly and Screecher Creature. And then Lorenzo was working in Metal Spark, and we did Sonic Feet a little while ago. And the Metal Spark was Lorenzo together with Lucas Mace and Patrice Vandenberg. And wow, I mean, this is just a whole other story. So, in a sense, for me, it still has such an otherworldly vibe that the percussion provides a different framework, but it's still so psychedelic that it never devolves, because I personally consider it a devolution, into something clubby, right? It doesn't go into something scene-y uh, that I think can so easily happen when things revolve around more around the percussion than around the other elements. And when the other elements also aren't uplifting or outgoing in terms of taking you out to other perspectives and sonic frameworks. And so, I've just always loved this guy's work. And so Sonic Feet was the first track that I got, I think, from them, and I got that on DAT earlier in '98, and I'm pretty sure it came from Akira Solstice. That's what's coming to mind now again. I'll go back and see the other episode and see what it is that I said. But I remember later in '98, I got a full album, and it's written in yen over here, but there's no store mentioned here. It's just 2,280 yen way back then. We used to spend money on music quite a bit. And one of the challenges used to be, you're getting comps, you're getting albums, you don't know what the quality's like. But of course, I knew Metal Spark, and so I knew it was going to be awesome. And sure enough, it is. And so, Kickstart's on here, which I love. Metal Detector, amazing. And a whole bunch of incredible stuff. Sonic Feet as a bonus, which for me, I mean, it's just one of the all-time great tracks. And today we're going to do the seventh track on the album, Technosaur, which I love as a play on words, right? In terms of dinosaur and techno. And of course, now 30 years later, I'm going to feel a little bit more like technosaurs, and especially when I'm shaking my fist at how things used to be and sounding like somebody who's maybe feeling extinct, but we are not. So, this track, of course, is just brilliant. So I'll be highlighting, all of the different features, all of the different sound, elements that are brought in here, and listening to it before this filming. Again, I was impressed with the fact that it's, it's still super spacey. It's still super out there. And I just love it. So I reached out to the guys to see if they had any memories, and there were no particular memories about this one. But what Lorenzo said was, I could just remember us, I could see us in the studio having fun. Isn't that great? I just think that's lovely because that's what it should be about, right? And so you don't need to have all those specific memories, but this is when the musicians are having a great time, or when they're focused together, or they're really inspired together, or they're whatever, there's that collective experience, and there's that camaraderie and that working together. I think there's just something that works its way into the fabric of the music that we get to experience as well. And for me, this is fun. And I take my music very seriously, in case you didn't notice, and the message seriously. And I think it's, of course, important to have fun. And also, my feng shui training, yin and yang, opposites working together harmoniously, the fun stuff. There's still a level of, grounded and connected and so on, without just being, completely, off the rails, which of course is another thing that can happen. But I digress, as I often do. We will listen now to this wonderful, fun, quirky, energetic, weird, lovely, spacey track by Metal Spark, Technosaur. So, now, these sounds, these bleepy sounds, I mean, they're commonly used now. They were, coming more and more to the fore just around this time. And this lead in, I love the way that leads into this repeated pattern, which again, repetition helps to create that trance-like effect. Another lead in here. And that brings in the kick. Right, so it's still got a solid kick, right? So breaks are not the only thing that are going to come into this. very cool upper frequency sounds. But now the kick structure shifts. Now this is still so alien, right? So if you start to imagine this as voices and on a bigger system and in the right space and setting and set, you know, that's what it's going to feel like. And then this familiar lead in again. And there's this dimensionality where it seems like the voices are shooting out at you. And like laser zaps. But these bleepy zappy things, right, which would be very Cox Box and other kind of projects like that, right, really deepens and otherworldly eyes the proceedings. I love that rhythmic. The propulsion of some of these riffs. And it sounds really free and funky and groovy. Super cool, light, clear textures here too. Very cool and playful. And, you know, the shaping really helps with that uplift. That element there. Fabulous. So how many things are happening at the same time? Amazing emphasis. Cool little delay on that one. Wow. Cool that the kicks dropped out. Just phenomenal. Reverberation going on. Goes so beautifully with those bleeps added back in. So, you know, that's kind of squelchy stuff has been used by so many since that it's kind of, you know, people can now think of it as a bit less than, but it's still fantastic stuff when it's presented with the right musical content and serving the effects. Amazing reverb echoing going on here. And again, that lead in. Seamless the way it entered into this riff. And listen to the climbing here. Super psychedelic. Just that climbing, going up and down. Amazing. I love the way it just goes back on a lot more regularly. And again, and again. Then a break. You know, when the kick drops out, it's for a reason, right? Lets you catch your breath, but it's the same musical content is continuing and deepening. And there's an organic storyline. It's not an interruption. Some very clever behind the scenes lower mid stuff going on here, and then this reverb too. I love the way that's accented as well. I mean, wow. Absolute genius, right? I mean, that's not about the beats. The beats are there, and it's not about the beats. And this is the thing that's really key, right? It's a feature, it's not the feature. It's a characteristic, and it provides texture, it provides rhythm, it provides something that's serving a purpose, and not just we're just putting it here, right? And so, I mean, the whole musical concept here is still like take somebody to another level and take somebody outside of the norm. So when I speak about things, not being clubby, of course we went to clubs and of course we still go to clubs because those are the places that, we can go and congregate and there's a sound system and you can do all of these things. But it's, how do you get the club to transcend the club scene? And that's for me what the potential of these events always was. I went somewhere and it just completely went beyond, the experience in Tokyo in the 90s really was next level. And I think probably spoiled me because it gave me a taste of what the potential here is, where you had people from all countries of a whole range of ages, because there's people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, from, international. So it's this whole microcosm of, terrestrial people that connecting to, what's beyond. How do we all get along? And how do we break down all of these barriers? And so, any scene that becomes too defined then is losing that expansiveness. And so that's some of what I mentioned last week that Tsuyoshi was on about, when he was like trying to sort of break down the barriers of Goa trance. And, and a lot of folks really didn't like the term Goa trance. And now, you have a lot of people who don't like the term psytrance and psychedelic trance, and they look down on the music, of course, as soon as they hear the name, and that especially in the mainstream club scene. And then you get big name DJs who will drop psytrance tracks in their sets, and everybody loves it because they don't know that's what it is. Uh, you know, I've always thought our scene is the music that people want to hear. They might just not know it yet, and they might need the right experience. First experience is not always, if it's that different, it can be a little surprising. But in any case, talking about clubs, my main thing was about the club being able to, in a sense, transcend its location in the same way that we as humans transcend our current location and embodiment into something beyond. And so, when it came to breaks in terms of the percussive kind, nobody ever outdid, to my knowledge. And certainly my experience, Metal Spark and Lorenzo's earlier project, Sibilant, and whoever was in that realm. It's just absolutely phenomenal the way it's just seamlessly fuses the best of psychedelic electronic music and is so completely entrancing. So bravo, gents. Another wonderful one. I will sign off here and leave you with the entire track without commentary so you can really enjoy its interdimensional splendor. I'm Mark, DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 157 of Retro Goa Explorations and leaving you now with Metal Sparks Technosaur.